in a way immersed in a game, you're engaged in a game, you're doing it because it's fun. This does not only apply to playing games, but you could do anything, you know, if you do sports or you think about a mathematical problem. This sense of flow applies to any activity that absorbs you to the effect that you have actually these emotions, feelings, or experiences. When you play a game, when you are immersed in a game, you have a particular emotional experience. And I described here emotional arousal because, after all, this is related to the physiological, you know, effects of gaming, this presentation. And defined here, you know, it's a stimulation of an acute state of positive or negative emotion induced by the exposure to a specific event. I mean, you will encounter lots of events in games, and there will be a kind of tension curve there as well. But the interesting thing here is that this state actually comprises, or emotion comprises, three components. You have some sort of cognitive appraisal of the situation, you have feelings or emotions associated with it, and you have physiological activity. Well, it's relatively easy, although, again, strict psychologists would probably disagree with you because questionnaire design is actually very difficult if you want to do it properly and you want to get everything out of the data that you possibly can. But the ratings allow statistical analysis, so that's good, you have numbers. You also, particularly if you use open-ended questions, you can actually find out about the game that, or new things that you actually didn't anticipate in advance, okay? And of course they're cheap because they're paper and pencil based. How else can you measure immersion? Well, you can look into the physiology, heart rate, breathing. When people are a bit stressed or a bit excited, like me, my heart rate probably is a bit faster now than it usually is when I sit down. Just speaking is actually an effort, so that raises your heart rate and increases your breathing. But psychophysiological indices, and again, heart rate variability, skin conductance, pupil dilation, etc., all indicate physiological arousal that is associated with potentially emotional states of the individual, okay? And therefore could be an indicator of immersion in the game or addiction, but we're not going there, okay? That's another piece of research altogether. The data analysis is also more complex. Positive points, it's objective. Basically everything that is not good in questionnaires is good for psychophysiological measures. You can do fine-grained analysis, you have this analog identification of really what's going on physiology-wise, as well as eye tracking, you know, as well as about the mental model that people adapt. There's a variety of measures that may support each other. Statistical analysis is always good, and of course it doesn't really rely on memory or response tendencies that participants may have. Finally, again, benefits of both of these measures combined, all of them allow you to do a point-by-point analysis of what's really going on. And finally, systematic associations of these measurements could potentially identify what makes a good game, you know, what is essential for good game design. Okay. The potential applications then. How addictive is a game? Would we actually be able to identify physiological states? We usually want to avoid addiction. Some of you may not, some of you may. I can't gauge that depending on the success, you know, that a game will have. Are there any games that make you feel good? Okay. Or bad? I mean, is it possible that we can actually distinguish between those? Again, with what Mary said, can we actually develop games where we know that they're actually good in helping people? You know, therapy-wise, there are biofeedback games there as well. But also, can we educate people? Okay, and is there a physiological pattern or eye movement pattern that actually can indicate very early on if the purpose of the game can be achieved in the design phase?